Welcome. Today, we're setting out on a deeply fascinating and entirely objective exploration of spiritual philosophy. Specifically, we're going to be focusing heavily on the teachings and writings of Guide Xufeng from Life Chen Yuan. The source text we're unpacking in this explainer today was published back in December 2010. It's called Building the Soul Garden and Copying the Life of the Thousand-Year World. This text offers a highly structured, almost architectural approach to spiritual cultivation. It's really all about how we combine our theories with actual practice, how we align our consciousness with our everyday actions, and ultimately, how we achieve a profound, unshakable consistency between what we say and what we actually do.
Okay, let's dive into this by asking a question that transcends almost every philosophy out there, cutting right to the core of the human experience. Do your actions truly reflect your inner heart? This right here is the fundamental challenge of Guide Xufeng's work. His entire philosophy is anchored in this one big idea. To achieve unity between heaven and humanity, your word and your deed absolutely must be perfectly aligned. Any discrepancy between the two? Well, that's exactly where the trouble starts.
To unpack this framework, we've got a clear, 5-step roadmap for our journey today. 1. The danger of pretense. 2. Assessing the inner soul. 3. Building the soul garden. 4. Steps to ascension. And finally, 5. The ultimate reference frame.
Let's start right in with Section 1, the danger of pretense.
Before we can talk about building something beautiful, we first have to understand what Xufeng identifies as the absolute root cause of human suffering, chaos, and spiritual descent. The source text presents us with a very sharp, uncompromising dichotomy. On one side, we have pretense and deception. According to Xufeng, eliminating all forms of pretense is an absolute, non-negotiable requirement for the sublimation of what he calls Qianyuan celestials. If you hold on to deception, he argues it leads directly to alienation, separation from truth, and intense chaos in your life. But contrast that with the other side, unity and the Tao. This represents the ultimate goal, achieving harmony inside and out, and reaching a state of pure oneness with what the text refers to as the greatest creator. It is a stark contrast between a life of misery and a life of profound, resonant harmony.
The text argues that pretense doesn't just make you a bad person, it actually causes a fundamental fracture in your reality. It creates a split between divine wisdom and human intelligence. When people operate with deception, they literally alienate themselves from nature and the very source of life itself. Xufeng paints a pretty grim picture of a society filled with falseness. He describes it as a society of total misery and misfortune, restless and haunted by drifting souls, simply because there's a complete separation of the mind from truth, kindness, and beauty. So if pretense is so deeply dangerous and destructive, how can we actually measure our own spiritual well-being according to this philosophy?
That brings us to Section 2, assessing the inner soul.
So how do you actually know if you're secretly harboring this pretense? Well, this brings us to Life Chen Yuan's approach to self-assessment. Xufeng states, words reveal the heart and actions reflect intent. And this brilliantly illustrates the idea that a single lie, one insincere statement, or even an unnatural gesture isn't just a minor social faux pas. No, it actively exposes inner cowardice, anxiety, and hypocrisy. It shows that you lack a solid foundation and true inner peace. Your external expressions are an immediate, transparent window into the exact state of your soul.
Because of this, facts are the ultimate standard. This means our tangible deeds, rather than our beautiful or eloquent words, are the true measure of our cultivation. You can talk about your noble ideals and aspirations all day long, but if your words and actions are totally inconsistent and you're emitting falseness to the people around you, Xufeng states unequivocally that your soul is currently in a state of ugliness. Your future is basically an illusion if your present actions are false. So if we find ourselves falling short here, how do we fix it?
Let's look at Section 3, building the soul garden.
This brings us to the central, really beautiful metaphor of the entire text. It details the precise, active process a person has to undertake to cultivate their inner life and align themselves with truth. Now, what's really interesting about this is how relatable the very first step is, clearing out the filth and waste. We're talking about jealousy, complaint, resentment, arrogance, laziness, doubt, pessimism. I mean, we've all experienced these, right? But in this framework, they aren't just bad moods. They are the literal weeds choking out your spiritual garden. A person burdened by these traits is bound to suffer continuous troubles, anxiety, and fear. They have to be aggressively uprooted and totally cleared away.
Let's move to and see how this builds. Because once those weeds are finally gone, you have to intentionally plant seeds in their place. Things like truth, kindness, beauty, love, faith, sincerity, tranquility, bravery, and optimism.
By actively planting these specific traits and letting them grow strong, the soul garden flourishes. The text explains that a person with a well-built soul garden lives each and every day with deep joy, absolute freedom, and real contentment. They're filled with gratitude and are very rarely consumed by the anger or complaints we were just talking about. And cultivating this garden is an absolute prerequisite for our next phase.
Section 4. Steps to Ascension.
In Guides You Things philosophy, theoretical gardening is completely useless on its own. Theories actually have to be validated. The reality of the heavenly kingdom must be confirmed by practical, tangible, real-world practice. The source text directly outlines a literal, step-by-step roadmap for this spiritual progression, and it starts right here on Earth. Step 1 is proving you can live a harmonious life in what's called the second home on Earth. Step 2 is the ultimate test, achieving seamless integration into the copied life of the 1,000-year world. From there, Step 3 involves transitioning from that copied life to the life of the 10,000-year world. And finally, the absolute pinnacle, Step 4, is entering the celestial island continent of the Elysium world. It is an incredibly structured, highly specific progression.
So, the crucial point is that this progress isn't something you can just assume or imagine you're achieving. Anything unable to withstand scrutiny is illusory, devoid of true value, and, frankly, a massive waste of time. The progress of your self-improvement has to be rigorously tested through your everyday life experiences. Look, if you think you're advancing to the Elysium world, but you literally can't live harmoniously with your neighbors right here on Earth, you're engaging in self-deception. If you are constantly scrutinizing and testing yourself, how do you actually know if you're ascending or descending on the spiritual journey? What exactly are you measuring yourself against?
That brings us to Section 5, the ultimate reference frame.
A reference frame is simply a required standard or guide used for comparison. The text states that without such a guide, the standard is completely lost. It's kind of like trying to build a complex skyscraper without a blueprint or a measuring tape. It becomes completely impossible to gauge any real, objective progress. You have to have a model to compare yourself to.
And according to Guide Zhifeng, the specific reference frame for ascension right now is the 1,000-year world. Life Chen Yuan's reference model is specifically the awareness and the lifestyle of the celestials within this 1,000-year world. By using this exact model as the blueprint for building the soul garden, individuals can participate in the upcoming copied life of the 1,000-year world to validate and basically perfect themselves. This is how they lay a truly solid foundation for achieving their ultimate spiritual aspirations.
This brings us to the end of our explainer. Guide Shufeng's teachings challenge practitioners to constantly validate their inner hearts against a much higher standard, ensuring their words and deeds match up perfectly. But leaving the specific theology aside for just a moment, I want to ask you, what is your reference frame in life? What ultimate blueprint are you using to measure your own actions, weed your own soul garden, and determine if you are truly ascending day by day? It's a pretty powerful and provocative thought to leave you with. Thank you so much for joining me to explore this text today and keep asking those deep questions.